It is January 18th, 2015, and I'm interviewing Thomas H Askins Jr. about his father, Thomas Askins. How old were you when your father went to the war?
I was born in August 10, 1939. As you know from your history lessons, World War II started in September the 1st, thereabouts, 1939. So I was born some 20 days before World War II started, and I lived my entire life up until I was about 6 years old with the war raging in Europe and the Pacific. I was about 4 years old when my father went into the Army Air Corps.
Did he get drafted or did he go?
He was drafted into the Army Air Corps. He owned a grocery store at the time, and he had a wife and 2 children. And he was in his high 30s years old. He was drafted. He had 30 days to get his affairs together, to sell his grocery store that he owned, and to report to duty. He stayed in the Army Air Corps from 1943 until 1946.
What did he do in the war when he was in there?
He was a mechanic. They trained him to be an aircraft mechanic on the C-54 aircraft.
Okay, how did it affect your family when he went off to war?
Well, it was catastrophic. He left for almost 2 years, and he was gone most of that time. His pay was about $100 a month, which of course now would be like about $1,000 a month. We had to sell our house. We had to move into town and rent a little house that we lived in during the war while he was gone.
Of all the stories he told you about the war and when he was there, what stands out the most?
As far as any stories he told me about his World War II experiences, he took a ship from California to Hawaii. He said that was pretty interesting because they were worried about Japanese submarines sinking the ship, and also they had some really bad weather from time to time. When he was in Hawaii, excuse me, in the war was over, they dropped the atomic bomb in August of 1945. The Japanese surrendered, and at that same time, my father was shipped to Okinawa. And I think he flew there. He never really told me how he got to Okinawa, but I'm pretty sure they flew on C-54s, and they set up an operation at the airfield in Okinawa. At this time, the Japanese surrendered. My dad said that the Marines would come out of the hills, march down on the tarmac. They had hundreds and hundreds of the C-54 aircraft lined up, the ones that he worked on, and the Marines would walk down into the on the runway. They had big trucks full of brand new helmets, uniforms, everything was brand new. They took their old battle weary, worn out clothing and just stripped down on the airfield and put on the new uniforms, climbed in the airplanes, and took off to go to Japan for the surrender of the Japanese. They were the occupation forces that took care of the surrender. Dad said that for days, around the clock, every 2 minutes, an airplane would take off full of troops going to Japan for the surrender.
Okay, thank you. That was Thomas H Askins Jr. and January 18th, 2015.
You're certainly welcome, Gabriel.